Hey, Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with a high-octane muscle car walk-around. This is a 1968 AMC AMX. Don't call it a Javelin. You got to remember the Javelin arrived in 1968 as a 4-passenger, even 5-passenger pony car, sort of like the Mustang, Camaro, Firebird, same idea. And again, Javelin was American Motors' first stab at the pony car market. Well, the same year, halfway through, 68 and a half, the AMX debuted. Now, the AMX is essentially a Javelin with a foot taken out of the rear of the body. And if you ask me and most people, the proportions of the AMX are just about right. Short, the fastback really comes on strong, whereas the Javelin with the extra foot of roof looks a little stretched. I don't know. It's my opinion on the thing, but again, 68 was the first year for the 2-seat AMX, only made for 3 years, 68, 69, and 70, and a total of 6,725 of these things were made in 1968. Now, the beauty of the AMX was a variety of things that were specific and exclusive to the AMX, these little markers on the sides, right here, both sides. Of course, the hood with those sort of power bulges stamped into it, complete with faux louvers, but again, this hood right here, made of steel, not being reproduced. Good luck finding another one. And this is one of these things where anybody with a Javelin wants the AMX hood because it's so much cooler. And again, the AMX had this, Javelin had a little lesser hood with a little indentation, so special stuff right there. But again, don't look for a 6-cylinder in any AMX. Thankfully, AMC made these into performance models. They all had a 4-barrel and dual exhaust and a V8, but you can get the 290, the 343, or the 390. That's what this one has here. But as we make our way around the back, the stripes over the roof here, these are part of the Go Pack, which meant, of course, limited slip differential. And these are sort of freestyle, if you will. These would have been white or black in the day, but again, they're nicely harmonized, this sort of a bronze color with the off-white paint. So a nice use of color on this. But again, the taillight on this one is totally correct with the full width reflector here and the word AMX in the back. So people driving along in their Corvettes would know it just passed them. I'm kidding with that a little bit. I mean, a 390 AMX was a pretty potent car. But when I say Corvette, well, that was the only other American car with 2 seats. Believe it or not, AMC kind of marketed these things as a sports car, which technically is a car with 2 seats and no back seat. Speaking of that, let's go inside this one and learn what's happening in the cockpit. Inside the AMX, again, the unique features continue. One thing you'll never find is a back seat. In fact, you can see right here, it's a carpeted area here that covers up the floor and the axle hump. Keep in mind, again, there's a foot taken out of the Javelin, and that foot was where the back seat would have been. So again, AMC was very serious about making the AMX as sporty as possible, right down to the 2 bucket seats, no back seat. And you got to remember too that in the early 60s, American Motors was very profitable with really austere economy cars like the Rambler American, the classic boring cars. Problem is, those profits dwindled. By 1967, American Motors was that close to bankruptcy. So they had a last-minute rally, and they started doing cars for the youth market, for the baby boomers who were buying Mustangs and GTOs. And finally, by 68, they got hip, and the AMX is one of their first hip cars. And being hip, it has a 4-speed manual transmission right here. You could get the automatic, but on this one here, the VIN has an M in it, so it's a factory 4-speed. Under the floor is a Borg Warner T10. This one has the tilt column in it right here with an aftermarket steering wheel, which hides in plain sight, looks really good. And of course, the recessed gauges here were a sporty touch, making the AMX kind of like a fighter plane, if you will. And again, the bucket seat interior. And again, on AMX, never will you find Grandpa's 3-speed shifter on the column. They always had a floor shift and bucket seats, which meant sports car in anyone's language. Now, something we see on this one are some modifications, in particular, the little blue button right there. We got to go under the hood to see more about that. Now, the other end of that blue button is attached to the solenoids for the nitrous oxide and the gasoline. Yup, this is a plate-style nitrous oxide system, this guy right here and right there. And here's the micro switch right here. At wide open throttle, when the system's activated, it injects nitrous oxide and supplemental gasoline for at least another 100 horsepower. But beyond all of that, you can see here 401. So this is the best AMC engine ever, the 401, which was an outgrowth of the 390. Now this car originally, we can look at the VIN over here on the spring tower on the passenger side, and see the X. That tells us this was originally a 390, the good one. Not the 290, not the 343, but the 401's even better. The good news with the 401 is the extra 11 cubic inches and forged internals, which of course were also part of the 390s. That's a good, potent engine. At least 350 horsepower, and then you add 100 with the nitrous oxide. But again, under hood of this, very clean. The original spring towers in place, power front disc brakes, standard with the 390. This one does have the crazy but true vacuum wipers, which were an American Motors quirk well into the 1970s. The downside to these is if you're trying to pass somebody on a rainy day and your windshield is full of rain and stuff, you go wide open, the intake vacuum goes away, the wipers slow down to a crawl right when you need them, passing that big wheeler or the 18-wheeler. But with that said, it's original and let it be. Now again, the AMX had a special recessed grille, and again, some of the first plastic grills used in American Motors in mass production right here, 68 AMX. But again, just very nicely turned out. And I like how this has been built with a little bit of day 2 upgrade. Massive aluminum radiator right here to make sure that 401 stays cool. And this here is a GM HEI style distributor right there. So there's no points in this. It's electronic, a good fat spark. And I love the day 2, the headers, the tubing steel headers right there on the AMC big valve heads. And again, the cast iron manifolds are nice, but these are better if you want horsepower. Power steering, of course, part of the picture here. And just nicely turned out under the hood. So it's got to be at least 400 horsepower happening here. In a car that weighs 3,300 pounds with a 4-speed and a 99-inch wheelbase, you got a tiger by the tail here. Speaking of the tail, let's look at the back. And let's remember that American Motors was not part of the big 3, GM, Ford, and Chrysler. By contrast, American Motors, located in Kenosha, Wisconsin, was the little 4, one of the independents, Studebaker, Kaiser, etc. AMC was one of the last ones. But the thing is, they didn't have a big budget. So, as a result, the deck lid and the doors of the AMX were also shared on the larger Javelin. So that's how AMC kind of got a different look, but with the same part. But again, the quarter panels on the AMX are specific with the exaggerated fastback, and it really looks like a very different car, even though it has similar bones, but on a shorter wheelbase. Now, we saw the nitrous system under the hood and inside the car, but that's only 2/3 of the equation. The final third is right here in the trunk. This is the nitrous oxide bottle. We can see it right here. It's properly secured. It's not going to roll around or flop. Here's the covered braided hose. Nice how it's been protected from getting slapped or moved, but there's a braided hose in there which runs from the back of the car up to the engine bay. And something kind of cool, this is an AMC specific little pro tip, if you will. You can notice right here, this is a T125/90 D16 temporary spare tire from a Jeep Wrangler. And the beauty here is it's very tall, and it's almost a match for the aftermarket wheels and tires on the back and front of this car. The thing is, if you have a flat tire at the back with a safety track or a posi type rear axle, and you put a shorter spare tire on one side, you can cook the clutches in the differential. But if you have a spare that's almost the same size, you'll preserve those clutches when you get your way to the gas station for a repair on that flat tire. But I like how they've done a lot of detailing here. The battery is here in the trunk, right where it should be, in the right rear corner, not from the factory, but again, it's a nice upgrade. The weight distribution is far better when you put the battery in the rear. It's not light, it's probably 60 pounds. And I like here the attention to detail, the amplifier, the battery, the nitrous bottle, all hidden behind these quickly accessible wing nuts with these plastic flaps that, you might call them modesty flaps, that add a little finishing touch to the back of this one. So as we make our way to the front, let's continue admiring the day 2 mods. We see here the aluminum wheels. They look kind of like a Halabrand, polished aluminum wheel with a name brand radial tire front and rear. Same thing up front. Disc brakes up front, drums in the back, and that's okay. These are big American Motors discs, again, part of the 390 Go package. And a nice blend of then and now. And again, with only 6,725 two-seat AMXs made in 1968, the first of a mere 3-year run. This is a must-have for any collection. And I dare say that people with Mustangs and Challengers and Camaros and Firebirds who ignore the AMX are really missing out. These are cool cars, 390 cubic inches. This one's a 401, 4-speed tranny, and nitrous oxide. You better watch out. You better have a Mustang Boss 429 if you're going to mess with this car. These are going to be pretty quick. If you like what you've seen in this video, keep in mind that most of the vehicles shown on the High Octane Classics YouTube channel are available for purchase for as little as 10% down. And even though High-Octane Classics is located in Auburn, Massachusetts, we can deliver these cars anywhere on the planet. And we do consider trades. So if you have a motorcycle, another classic, an exotic, you name it, we can certainly consider it as a possible trade toward the vehicle you want to buy. To learn more about these vehicles, check them out on the High-Octane Classics website or call 508-859-4515.